Nope.
Today's class is about how to write and publish your own book. As you may know, I wrote a book about 6 years ago. I did it myself. I had always wanted to be an author, always wanted to write. When I was little, I liked to write. And I finally decided as an adult that I was going to go ahead and actually do it. So, this class is going to teach you not only how to write your book, but what you need to do to publish it. Okay?
Okay.
You have any questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right. The first thing that you want to do is you want to find out what it is that you want to write about. What have you always wanted to write about?
My life.
Okay. So let's start with your life. So you already know the main characters. Think about the main characters or the main people who played a big role in your life when you were growing up. Would that have been your mom or your sister? Okay. So when you're writing a book, you got to decide, am I going to make it fictional or am I going to make it non-fictional? Am I going to actually use the actual people, the names of the family members, or am I going to change their names and name them something else? So let's say you would decide that you don't want to name your sister her real name, you want to name her Tamika, and you want your mom's name to be Janet or whatever. You're going to write these things down, okay? And then you got to decide what kind of personalities. If you're going by your life, you already know their real life personalities. They're fictitious names, maybe, but they're real life personalities. So you would think in your mind, okay, Tamika acts like this, and my mom acts like this, and then once you have decided who your characters are and how you want to write the book, your next thing is going to be to decide where you want to be. Like, where are you from again?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. What part of South Carolina?
Lancaster.
Okay, so you decide, do I want my story to be in Lancaster, or do I want to take it to a completely different place? Because you're deciding whether or not you want it to be fictitious or real. If you want it to be a lot of your story or just little pieces of your story. So let's say you want to do it in Lancaster. Okay, so the setting will be in Lancaster. So when you're writing, you have to think about all the things about Lancaster that makes Lancaster stand out. And you're going to use that when you're writing your story. So after you've decided who the characters are going to be, you've decided what your story is going to be about, if it's going to be fiction or nonfiction, and you have all of that part down, the next thing will be to decide how you want your story to flow. What do you want to start at? So, and that's where the first chapter comes in at. You, let's say you want to start your story. What would be a good thing for you to start your story as? What would you like to start as? What do you think?
When I was a child.
Okay, let's start when you were a child. So your first chapter is your opening chapter. It's your beginning. So whatever stood out in your mind when you were young, whatever situation, incident, something that may have happened, whatever, that stands out, that's what you're going to start writing about. And remember that your first chapter is the most important chapter because it's the one that's going to grab the author or the reader. Okay? So whoever is reading your book, that first chapter, they're going to decide within the first chapter, the first paragraph, whether or not they want to continue to read it or not. So you want to make that first paragraph grabbing. And then once you start to write it, then each chapter has to build on to the chapter before. So if you start with your first chapter, let's say you start as a little girl and you're running to school and some little girl hits you in the head. You're writing this now, mind you, because when writing, you have to write every little thing out because they can't see it. In a movie, if I put a movie screen up, you can see everything. Y'all don't have to tell you that I'm running because you see I'm running. But if you're writing, you have to write, she's running. You know, she ran up the steps, she's hot, she's sweating. The little girl dropped on her knee. You have to write everything out because as you write it, the reader is visualizing everything that you're saying. So when that first chapter, you're writing whatever it is that you're writing about, and then it flows. And then the next chapter, it adds on to it. So whatever happened in the first chapter, it has to build. That's how a story is. Kind of like a movie. How a movie begins there and it kind of builds, each segment kind of builds on and on and on. The same way with a book. So you start with your first chapter, whatever it is going to grab the reader and make them say, I wonder what's going to happen in the next chapter. What happened? Oh my God. You know, and you want to get emotion from the reader. You want to make them become a part of the book. You want them to leave their couch and actually go into wherever you're in Lancaster with you as a little girl. You want to make them feel whatever emotion that you were feeling at that time, because that's the reason why you want to tell your story. So each story you build each chapter. It's good to start with a rough draft. And the first time you just kind of like flowing. You're not worrying about punctuation. You're not worrying about proofreading, none of that. You're not worried about any. Right now, you just want to get the flow of the story. And it may take you 2 weeks, it may take you 3 weeks, it may take you a month. But each day, you just go and build a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Once you have your whole story outlined, then your next thing is going to be to actually put it together. And then you're going to need a proofreader, because you're going to want somebody to go behind you and make sure you didn't make any errors. You're going to want to do proofreading. You want to look at editing, grammar, all those kind of things, because when a person reads, if they read too many errors, or they see too many typos or anything like that, that's going to throw them off of the story. They're going to be thinking about, oh, she should have put an S right there, or she put a dot right there, or whatever. So proofreading is very important once you have it done. And so then the next step would be to type it out. And then you're going to have to proofread it again after you type it out. And it may take you months, but each day you go and you do a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, until before you know it, you have a complete book written out. It may take you, 3, 4. It took me 5 months to actually type it all out. Then once I typed it out and I had someone proofread it, then you go to different. You can either have the book done yourself, and such as like this book. This is a self-published book right here. This author basically wrote the manuscript out, just like as I told you, typed it out, and then they took it to a company. And this particular company is called Author House, but they have different ones like Author House, iUniverse, all kind of different companies you can go on online who will actually, once you've printed it, they will take your Word or however you did your file, and they will actually put it in a manuscript. They'll bind it for you. They'll give you an ISBN number and a barcode and everything, so that you can actually go out and sell your story of you as a little girl growing up or whatever, to either you can sell it to people all over the world, or you can just sell it to people at a book signing, or you can just have it for family, however you want to do it. But basically, that's what goes into writing and publishing your book. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
You have any?
Not at all. Thank you.
It was, my experience was
So how many books do you have?
I wrote 5 books, wrote and published 5 books. 3 of them was a novel, and one of them was a poetry book, and one of them was like a spiritual book. But I actually published it, and it's online. So.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really learned a lot. Thank you so much.
You want to look through it?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Thank you.